In this episode we're going to talk about what can break on a woodchip truck. So this is some examples from this. Yes, today I'm going to talk about a request I had from some viewer. The person wondered what kind of failure and what often breaks, what can go wrong with the woodchip trucks. I can tell you some things that I have had problems with the woodchip trucks. And many failures, many things that break in the woodchip trucks doesn't break because there's a woodchip truck. A lot of failures on trucks and trailers, that is common on many trucks, not only woodchip trucks. So I don't have to talk about this so much. Myself, I've experienced a lot of failures with the trucks, like air system and the gearbox, engines, engine failures, generators, for example. So there's so many things that could break on a truck. Generally, trucks break more often than cars, because we drive so many kilometers per year, and also because the trucks are kind of complicated nowadays, with a lot of systems and big systems. There's so many sensors all over the truck, both on truck and trailer, but especially around the engine. There's very common sensors failures on the truck, on the electrical system. And that's because the electronic system is very complicated nowadays. The last 15 years have been more with this kind of electrical problems with the trucks. But often you can drive the truck even though you have some indication from the system that there is a failure. But you can drive the truck and then you go to the workshop and have it checked up. That's the most common scenario. But when talking about the woodchip truck, there are some things that break only because there's a woodchip truck. At first we have the hydraulics. The hydraulic system, which makes it possible to unload tipping on the trucks sideways. Many trucks have hydraulic systems, not only the woodchip truck. For example, timber trucks and other trucks. But on the woodchip truck there is a very spread out system. The hydraulic system is very spread out over the truck. For example, I was driving this container truck before, and we have hydraulics on the truck but not on the trailer. But on woodchip trucks there is, from the very front in the engine of the truck you have hydraulics, and all the way back to the rear end of the truck on the trailer there is hydraulics. And many of the hoses, there is very big, high pressure in them. Often you can change the hoses kind of easily because they are not so hidden in the construction. And as well, when you have a new truck, it's not so hard work to release the hoses. But if you have an old truck with old hoses and old hydraulic system, it could be very hard to change the hoses. There is some different techniques you can use to get loose the hoses. For example, you can use a small hammer to hit the connection on the hose, but you have to be careful so you don't destroy the connection, so you can get it loose. But another way is to use tools in a smart way. And at first use the right tools. Don't use tools that is not very fit for the job. Anyway, what you do is that, if I can explain this way, this is how the connection between the pipe and the hose, and the hose is in the other end connected to the piston. But what is hard to get loose sometimes is this connection between the pipe and the hose. So at first it's very good to have a hacksaw, because inside of the hose there is metal lines to make it stronger, like the tires. It's the same construction. So sometimes the hose is stuck with the nut. So it's very good to use the hacksaw to cut the hose in two pieces before you start unscrew it. It makes it so much more easier for you. But then when starting to disconnect the nut, there is this distant between the pipe and the hose nut. And it's often different sizes, so you don't need so much tools as necessary. But you put the first key at the middle part I showed you before, and then you put the other key tool on the hose nut. So these two will be in the same direction. And then you put another tool key between these two. So now you have more power to unloose the screw, the nut on the hose. So that's my best tip, to get loosen the hoses. And it's always good to carry extra hoses in your truck. But also there is some things you can do to prevent the hoses from bursting. When you're walking around your truck, look at the hoses. Because you can see if it starts to tear down the hose, to wear down the hose. Because when you're operating the system, the hoses are moving. So sometimes they rub against each other, and it creates holes in the hoses. And this is actually the same with air hoses, which is on every truck. So the air hoses, which is all over the truck, you can also look at these, so they will not wear down, tear down. But they have to not rub against each other. The first thing you can do is to use a protection hose protector. There's like a plastic spiral. You are twinning it, putting it on the hose, so they won't rub against each other. But also you can loosen the hose a little bit and change position, so it will not rub against each other or some construction. Then another thing you can do, often the hoses burst when you're operating the system in the end position, when the piston coming to the end of the system. When it comes to the end of the system, there is like a higher pressure in the hoses. So what to think about is to not have too high RPM on the engine when you're coming to the end of the piston position. So then you will have not as high risk to burst the hose. But the hoses will only get burst if they are in a bad condition. So it's better to change it. But it's better to not burst it while operating, because then you can change it while looking at it instead. So you can prevent this if you don't use high RPM in the end position of the pistons. Yes, that's about the hydraulic system. But then we have the construction. There's a lot of joints which can tear down and burst. On the side hatch we have a lot of moving parts, and the tipping system with a lot of joints, and the top cover as well, have a lot of pistons and moving parts. So all the moving parts is actually a risk to get destroyed over the years. We have lubrication on all of the moving parts, but either way they can tear down over the years using the system, and there is a big risk for it to burst. And have experience of this many times. Sometimes when tipping, the piston connections burst, and once I had the piston falling down on the ground. So that's why it's also very important to look at the construction while operating, so you see if something bursts. And once when I was driving and unloading the truck, the cargo space disconnected from the pistons and fall down on the ground. And this is something you cannot prevent very easily, because it tears down over the years. Maybe you can drive a little bit careful, but sometimes in some places you need more speed and you need more power to unload, because of it could be slippery and lack of space and these kind of things. And that time when the cargo space fall to the ground, I had to push it back with a wheel loader so I could get home to the workshop. And when the piston falls on the ground, I could tie it up with some straps to get home to the workshop. It happened many more things as well. Arms on the hatches have been falling down sometimes. But you have to solve it while working. But always I could come home with the truck without have to call some service truck to the place. But of course it's possible to call the service truck, but it's very much better if it's possible to come back to the workshop. But we also had some problems on older trucks with the frame construction under the floor, that it will get a lot of rust and cracks in the steel construction. Something that is very common, but I didn't experience, but some colleagues have the pistons to go right through the floor up in the cargo space, because it cracks with the piston holdings. What can happen more? Yeah, we have the top cover. Actually, on the top cover there is this rubber straps that is tensioning the top cover. This tears over the years and you have to change them. They will burst sometimes, and also there's this long rubber strappings that will burst sometime. it could be some tricky to change them, but it's not a big problem. It's very practical just to put them back. But you can look at them to not see, so they are not too much bad condition. And there is metal wires as well on top of the cargo space that could tear down. And you can see if they are there are some cuts in them. It's better to change them before they burst. But if they do, you can just change them. We carry extra with us in the truck, so we can change while if they burst while operating. I don't know what more to say. The construction have its weakness, but yeah, I can mention something about the axles, the wheel axles. I have had some problems when the axles get loose, and that's not so strange, because when unloading the trailer, there's high pressure on the rear end axles. So while time with a lot of unloading, it will get tear down. And for me, I've been experienced this once, and I know a lot of colleagues also. But this is mainly on older trailers, and it's also always the rear axles, because they have a lot of more pressure on them. When unloading, they are pushed aside, but the front wheels are not, so because they follow the truck more. Therefore, it's very good to check my video about unloading, how to unload, put too much pressure on the rear axles. That's just unnecessary. But watch this video and you will understand what I am talking about. It's good to learn this so you don't tear down the rear axle as unnecessary. When the trailers are new, there's not a problems for the axles, but the tires will tear down very fast if you unload in the wrong way. But when the trailers are older, like 15 years older, and maybe 2 million kilometers, there will be a big risk for them to burst loose. As I said, I don't have to talk about the failures that is common on trucks, but this is what is very common to break on the woodchip truck. And probably I forgot something to mention. So my colleagues who also drive woodchip truck, please write in the comments if you know something more that often breaks on woodchip trucks that I didn't mention. Okay, that's it for today then. I hope you have some knowledge from this video as well. Okay, see you. Bye bye.